editor. Let's go straight to Eric Lissan, legal analyst, legal expert, lawyer in Paris and in the United States. Eric, former federal prosecutor. Nice to have you on board as ever. Breach of constitutional responsibilities. I'll start there. For you, does that stack up, given what we know?
Given what we know, given the reporting in the press, yes, it does. Now, we have to confirm some things, but the president himself has admitted the core elements of the constitutional offense. He's saying, so what? But so what indeed, it's a very big deal because he is essentially admitting to the fact that he extorted from the president of Ukraine or attempted to extort from the president of Ukraine some sort of a commitment to gin up an investigation of a political rival. Indeed, his most formidable political rival right now, Joe Biden. So he's trying to say, dig up some dirt from Joe Biden, and I'll release to you between $250 million and $400 million of military aid that by law I'm required to give you anyway, but I'm unilaterally working behind the scenes to block it unless you give me some dirt on my political rival. That's clearly a constitutional violation, and it's abuse of power, and it is an impeachable offense. Now, we still have to go through the steps to determine whether we can demonstrate this in a way that's acceptable and clearly acceptable to all of the American voting public. That's what's held up Nancy Pelosi prior to now, even though we've had other constitutional offenses. But clearly she feels that this one is clear enough, and almost unanimously the entire Democratic caucus in the House of Representatives is pushing her in this direction, and they want to get it going. So they're going to conduct an inquiry. We'll see what the testimony is. And after all of the facts are gathered, the Democrats can unite again and decide how to proceed in this manner.
Violation of the law over the non-disclosure of the whistleblower's complaint, the allegations. I mean, clearly, give us your thoughts on that too. Does this stack up?
Yes, that's actually, and it's very good that you mentioned that, Mark, and that's very important. I should have mentioned that. That's the hook that Nancy Pelosi really can hang her hat on initially, because that's a clear black and white violation of the law. Comes from an office called the Director of National Intelligence. They have something called an IG, an Inspector General. There's a very specific law that requires whistleblower complaints to be reviewed by the Inspector General on a legal basis to apply the legal standards spelled out in the law. And if those criteria are met, and the Inspector General alone determines that those criteria are met, the whistleblower complaint is to be forwarded, must be, directly to Congress. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. It's black and white, and that did not happen here. The reason it didn't happen here is because the newly installed Director of National Intelligence reached out to the White House, apparently, reached out to Trump's man at the Department of Justice and said, give me some cover if you don't want this disclosed. But it really is not a discretionary task. He must turn it over. So what Nancy Pelosi is saying is that has not happened. They're obstructing it. I'm going to give them until Thursday to do it. And this is very clear in black and white. If they don't do it, this by itself is an abuse of power and will potentially at least prevent our investigation. So that's a very important starting point and something for which the White House doesn't really have a defense. But this is something that the public needs to be educated on by the Congress.
Is the release, Eric, of the recording of the phone call with Ukraine's President Zelensky, is this likely to do what Donald Trump perhaps thinks it will do, i.e. get rid of the accusations?
It's very hard to say. It's going to be a release of the transcript, not the actual recording, and the actual recording would be better. The transcript itself will have to be vetted to make sure it hasn't been doctored and things like that, because there have been problems with this in the past. Also, there may be other witnesses to the call. My sense is that Trump is now releasing the transcript as a first step towards trying to defuse this burgeoning scandal, and he may even encourage the Director of National Intelligence to fully testify in a couple of days. But that's sort of a diversion, because it's unlikely that in one single phone call the entire context of this quid pro quo, of this trade for you give me political dirt on my most formidable Democratic rival, and I'll release to you the military aid that you need to defend yourself from Russia. It surely wasn't spelled out like that in the transcript. So we've seen this play out before with these kinds of things. It's going to be spun one way by the Republicans, one way by the Democrats, another way. But we have to look at it in the context of everything that happened. And Trump's statements themselves give us a lot of context for that, because he's told us through the course of the last several days in numerous rambling statements, but the gist of it is this was a deal where he was concerned enough about what was going on with Joe Biden, and he wanted it so badly that he said he was willing to hold up the military aid, which he did not have the lawful ability to do. So the transcript by itself may not make that abundantly clear, but when it's placed in the context of everything else that is known, and the complete whistleblower complaint should shed some further light on that, it could be quite revealing.
Lisan, former U.S. prosecutor, lawyer in the States and here in France. Thank you, sir, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have your analysis. The clarity there of the situation really spelled out for us by Eric Lisan. Thank you, sir, once again. Let's bring in